And in those kinds of instances, the dogs can perceive it as a fight for their life.
Mm-hmm.
So if you come and grab me while I'm being assaulted by like 3 people and I'm just giving it everything I got, I'm probably going to punch you too.
Yeah.
No offense, but I'm going to knock you out.
Yeah.
All right, we're up.
Well,
hit it.
Welcome back to Ridgeside Ec Radio with Mike Swerchek and myself, Gregory Hunt,
Where we specialize in botany.
where we specialize in botany and the dog enigma.
Ooh.
I don't know, dog philosophy.
I don't even know what enigma means.
The enigma of imagination.
All right.
Anyway, I figured today what I want to talk about is I was just kind of looking around, thinking about ideas, and I looked at my arm and I saw my latest stupidity scar. I guess I wouldn't call it a battle scar because it's nothing fun.
Yeah.
It's more of a mark of stupidity. So I figured
A daily reminder.
Yeah, I figured we would talk today about dog bites that we've incurred, whether training, a board and train, or an aggression rehab case, or maybe a personal dog bit you or something, maybe a friend's dog, and just kind of go over those situations. And ultimately, the result out of this is how a dog bite, whether for a trainer or for an owner, is ultimately user error, your fault if your dog attacks you or if it attacks maybe another dog in the house.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're not always going to know when situations are going to happen, but 99% of the time in hindsight, it was preventable. So kind of just going over how to prevent, how to be on the lookout, and how to, learn through our mistakes.
I love it. The only like 0.01% of dogs that I would disagree with that on is ones that are sick.
Oh, for sure.
But that's like very few and far between. I think out of the hundreds of aggression cases that I've worked with and whatever, 2 dogs come to mind. One was a police dog who ended up having like severe neurological issues, but like he would be happy and like playing and sitting there, and then he could be sitting next to his handler, happy as can be, and then out of nowhere he would just go to a dark place and just start annihilating his handler. He ended up being euthanized, and then a necropsy was done, and he definitely had a small brain tumor. Same thing with another. It was a mastiff that unprovoked aggression, like you couldn't even see it coming, and it was the true unprovoked aggression. And same thing, small brain tumor. But 99.99999% of the cases that we see, whether it's aggressive dogs that come in for training that have a bite history, most of the time they're 100% preventable. And it's either putting dogs in situations they shouldn't be or disrespecting the dog's boundaries, which I think is where a lot of them comes from.
And falling into disrespecting the boundaries, we're talking about like, I guess it can kind of also go into that, but like overcorrections even can kind of fall into that category when a dog redirects or when a dog feels like something's unfair. So like if, again, you're pushing the boundary, you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing, something that's unfair to them.
I see that all of the time in police dogs.
Yeah.
Most of the time where, it used to be like a badge of honor that you had this badass dog that would like redirect on you and you're like, oh man, he's just a really tough dog. Old school trainers got a kick out of it. I think that's a whole different topic, but like you've been bit by dogs. I've been bit by a lot of dogs. Every single time I get bit, it hurts like shit.
Yeah.
It's not one of those things like you get used to. It doesn't matter if it's big, small, like dog teeth hurt. They're designed to tear flesh. But all of the police dogs that redirect on their handlers is because they're confused as shit because they haven't taught the dog what they need to know. So then this dog's just getting smacked around for no reason. And eventually they just go over threshold and they're like, I'll solve my own problem and I'll bite the shit out of you. It sucks and it's 100% preventable. So tell the story about your bicep, besides how jacked you are.
My most recent bite was, again, very stupid. The situation, we're at home, breaking dogs out into the backyard. We're walking dogs through the house, walking dogs on leash out front, whatever it may be. And what had actually happened was we had a, not super aggressive dog. Again, like it doesn't need to be an aggressive dog to bite you. I want to say that the 3 major bites that I've taken from dogs, or the 3 major dog fights that I've been in, essentially, all came from very calm, very neutral, most of the time dogs. They just have their own boundary to something, or they were put in a situation where, again, they were made uncomfortable.
That's actually a good point. We'll unpack that real quick. Every single dog on this planet will bite, 100%. I haven't met a dog that won't bite. They have teeth. That's like their last resort. It's not that they want to generally, but they have a very limited toolbox of communication to us. And then if we don't read their communication and put them in a position where they have no choice but to get themselves out, then they're going to bite. And the problem we see from the training perspective when these behavior mod cases come in is the dogs have learned to be aggressive, and they learn that aggression will get them out of uncomfortable situations. And then they take a little bit of leeway and will start pushing that into resource guarding or whatever it may be.
Right. And like that aggression for them also isn't an offensive, like offensive behavior. It's a defensive, self-defense learned thing where it's like, I am uncomfortable, I'm self-defending, and I learned that it works, right? Like I learned that the growling doesn't work, the posturing doesn't work, but me putting teeth on, that stops the unwanted feeling, basically. But yeah, so leading into the faults of what happened, Ashley and I were just breaking dogs, like I said, and she took one dog through the house, and timeline breakdown in my head. Like, I know my house. I know how we do this. We break dogs every single day. I know how many seconds it takes for
22 steps from back door to garage or wherever you're going.
Absolutely. So I'm in,
Greg's got his self-defense plan broken down schematically.
1,000, 2, 1,000. They're there. So we're breaking dogs, and she takes one dog out, and I'm counting in my head, like, all right, cool. Like, she's walking that dog out. I'm going to go ahead and take the next dog out of the room, go through the front door, and, I'm going to take it to go do some front yard stuff while she's doing backyard stuff. And in my head, I heard, and both dogs were like off leash trained. So I'm not like putting a leash on them right out of the kennel. They're just walking through the house freely, doing their thing. And in my head, it's like, all right, cool. There she goes through the door, 1,000, 2, 1,000. All right, she's probably at the back door now. It's probably opening up. So I get my dog out, e-collar, everything good. And I get to the door, I crack it open, and I ask, like, hey, like, is he good? Is he outside? In my head, I thought I heard like a good to go. So I open my door, and our family friend's dog goes out through the door with me into the living room, and I see Ashley. I see her dog. Mind you, both of the dogs are off leash at this point, and she's nowhere near the back door yet. And I'm like, oh.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, uh-oh, very bad. Just because, again, like, that other dog wasn't aggressive, in a, like, I need to kill every single dog kind of a way. It was just a very kind of reactive dog in a...
Probably more of a, not a shit starter, but certainly not a shit taker.
Absolutely. So in that reactive situation, in that very tense situation that, I also kind of portrayed it to be, immediately as he saw her, he started going. And Ashley and I, like, we're kind of turned down for the night. It's like 8:30 or 9. We're not like fully dressed and prepared to
hey, keep your personal life out of this, okay?
It was like, typical shorts, nightwear, I guess you would say.
That's when it always happens.
Yeah. And so breakdown of what actually happened was Ashley made I was behind my dog. So Ashley's in between both of these dogs that are moving towards each other. And the breakdown of it was, and like, this is kind of the mindset of, OODA loop and dealing with stress and whatnot, and having good communication. Because, like, there were communication breakdowns prior to that happening. Like I said, like, I assumed she had the dog out. I asked, hey, is it clear? And, I didn't hear what I thought I heard, I guess, or I didn't hear what she had said, basically. So now we're here. She's in the middle of those dogs, and the one dog is like ready to launch and go at this other dog. And in the moment, middle of the living room, I'm like, all right, like, split seconds. It's like, all right, I can't shift left because what if that other dog, circles around this way?
Yeah.
I can't shift to the right because what if that other dog comes around? And Ashley's stuck in the middle. So I don't want to grab my dog by the flat collar and bring it away. And now Ashley has the instigator, or the,
the more aggressive one, so to speak.
Like, so she doesn't have that more aggressive dog now driving harder because, it was locking eyes on a still moving object, and I didn't want to like bring it away and make it have more of a prey drive kind of thing. And then, Ashley being in the middle of that. So I did the only thing that I could do in those fractional seconds was I said, like, don't worry about it. I said, I told her to move. I said, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And she was super confused by that because she's like, like
clearly I'm fucking worried about this.
Yeah, like I'm very worried about this. Like, do not I'm not gonna move. Like, I don't want this. Like, I don't want them to fight. I don't want to get into it.
And there's probably still a little bit of a oh shit factor, like vapor lock or freeze.
Yeah, and I'm like, move, get out of the way. And she's like dogs are on opposite sides of her, super close. And I was like, just move. And so she's like, fine. It wasn't that like instant willingness and obedience to orders. Yeah. Like, because she doesn't have that background kind of thing. But eventually she's like, all right, like whatever you say. So she moved out of the way. And as I knew what would happen, that dog jumped towards my dog, essentially. I was able to kind of scoop up before he landed on her back.
Yeah.
And, me scooping him in that moment, I took the redirection. And it was just like, a chaotic mess of tagging and barking and screaming. So I'm handling this dog while she goes ahead, grabs the other dog, runs, gets her back in a kennel. And I'm just kind of dealing with my dog. And like, I knew it wasn't personal. Like, I made this situation happen. I knew it was totally my fault. I just needed to calmly get control of it. I don't think I don't think this dog was wearing a flat collar at all. So I couldn't manage it the way that I would prefer to manage it. Which is after this situation, all of our dogs are now getting new flat collars in the mail, just so like I want all my dogs to be more prepared, or for me to be more prepared with the right tools. But so this dog, like I'm literally bouncing between grabbing it and trying to hold it from the front.
Yeah.
And it's just going back and forth tagging. And this was just one of the good ones that like has been the deepest. I had a few in my forearms. But eventually I got the dog back to the ground because like I just didn't have a good hold on it. And I'm like kind of standing off. And I'm like, all right, what are you going to do now? Jumps back at me.
Oh, he came back?
Yeah, jumped back at me, came around. He was just super hot and super heavy. But I managed to like get him to the back door, open it, let him out, let him run off. Like he had to do his decompress, potty break. And Ashley and I then had our after action report of like what happened, where the miscommunication was between us.
Yeah.
We went through it in our head, and like, again, like no fault to her, like the whole under fire, fog of war.
Yeah.
Decision is being casted out, listen to it, and then move and keep OODA looping. So like no fault to her. I could have been more clear in what I wanted her to do. I could have explained it more. Just like I could have prevented that situation in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
But ultimately, in the end, like I said, it wasn't the dog's fault. The dog wasn't aggressive towards me or like wanting to kill the other dog in any other situation. Went and got my slip lead, opened that back door. Dog came right up to me, happy as ever, slip lead on, walked it back to the kennel.
Yeah.
And there were no problems like thereafter. But it's just one of those situations where like I was, what I guess a lot of people could say, like, like we get a lot of calls for training where, the dog mauled my other dog or the dog redirected and attacked me. I know I just sent 2 dogs home that had a resource guarding issue over food. The dad went to go break it up and the dog redirected on him or whatever. So like, I know how that feels. I know how it looks, but understanding like at the root of it, like I caused my particular situation. And then through other ones, is understanding that it's definitely mitigatable and it's always a learning experience to prevent it from there.
Yeah. I think, it can be definitely hard for owners, especially when it comes to redirection in like that kind of an instant. It's like very hard to not take it personal. Like my child just bit the shit out of me and now I'm leaking all over the place. I think maybe we have a little bit of a different perspective on it. Mainly we've been in high stress, like combat scenarios and like trained martial arts and done all this stuff. And I can 100% guarantee you if I'm in like, in those kinds of instances, the dogs can perceive it as a fight for their life. So if you come and grab me while I'm being assaulted by like 3 people and I'm just giving it everything I got, I'm probably going to punch you too.
Yeah.
No offense, but I'm going to knock you out.
Yeah.
And I'll feel bad about it afterwards, but that's just the mindset. It's just like pure defensive mode. So it's definitely not personal from the dog to the human. We just, as humans, take it personal.
Yeah.
And it's just the thing that I like that you really said is like doing an after action. And we're used to that from like every mission, every call as a cop, every mission I went on as a contractor. Like we break it down, whether it was good or bad, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about every single piece of it and what can we do better? What do we need to fix? What did we do good? And how can we make that better? So the fact that like you and Ashley have that communication and can do an AAR on what just happened makes it that much better because now everybody's learning from it.
Yeah, for sure. Like, cause like out of my like three biggest bites as a dog trainer, 2 have been with her like in the presence, but like the very first one, it was probably 2 or 3 years ago.
Right.
So like it's one of the situations where we don't have a lot of like practice in.
Yeah, that's good.
But yeah, but like each time, you know, like after the first time, like we had an after action about it, and you know, it was like communication's important because like I don't know if you wanted to go back into or if you want to go into a bite or like I can lead into another one. Like it's all about communication ultimately, either between you and the dog or between you and another person in that situation.
And I had the same problem you do. Like short in stressful situations, even though it's been like scientifically proven, like short, direct, to the point communication is what I revert back to. Yeah. And that it doesn't even have to be like, you know, a high stress thing, but like if I'm have to repeat myself, and this is a bad habit, like if I have to repeat myself in like my home relationships like 2 or 3 times, I'll get like snippy. Yeah. And it's like, okay, maybe you're not understanding the full sentence. So like ABC.
Yeah.
Right.
You almost like brevity is what we're taught, and you almost get more like that every time you have to repeat yourself. Like,
yes.
Like you almost use more brevity each single time. And like, that's the opposite of what the other person generally needs.
Yeah. Unless it's somebody who's just been through that. Like, if I don't hear you and you're like, dog, I'll be like, oh, I got it.
Cause like it's one of the things where you have to like, and our whole problem is like, my response doesn't make sense.
Yes.
And it's like, cool, that's fine. Make it make sense. Yeah. Right. Like think fastly to make it make sense. And again, for us, it's like a training thing. You know, like my very first like deeper bite or harder bite as a dog trainer, sometimes you have to use leash pressure to get a dog into a kennel. They're not always super willing. Sometimes you have to move a dog in and out. So like one of the situations where we had a leash through a kennel, Ashley was kind of holding it just so the dog couldn't run away or couldn't do anything else. And I'm trying to coach it and guide it into the kennel. It was a rough one, so like it wasn't see-through, obviously. Like Ashley couldn't see the dog, essentially. Right. She's just sitting in the back, just standing in case like I let go of the leash. She at least had an anchor to it.
And this is a previous aggressive dog or a dog?
No, this is just a Great Dane. Super nice, 6-month-old, gentle as can be Great Dane. But the day that we were getting it into the kennel for the first time, it just had a little bit of hesitation.
Sure.
And like super, super sweet dog. Like I loved him throughout all of training, even after the bite. Like day one was the bite with him.
Yeah.
But there was no issues whatsoever. From there, the owners never had a problem. It was this little like 5'1", 100-pound girl who like had this Dane that was her size basically.
Oh.
You know, after training, never had a problem. Before training, it was just like he pulled her and dragged her because he was her body weight.
He's a horse.
Yeah. But what had happened was I'm kind of like holding the leash, kind of guiding him, just like, you know, small spatial pressures, whatever it was.
And I'm assuming you like food wasn't working.
No, food, nothing at all. And I forget if maybe he backed out and like Ashley had the anchor, or I like kind of like guided him back in. Something happened where just his head was in the kennel, like he wasn't getting his feet in, and me holding the leash right next to his head, he had chomped down, just like out of stress. He like backed up, felt the leash pressure, and he just chomped down. So I'm holding the leash right at the edge of the slip lead, like that's around his head. He chomps down on my hand. I can't let go of the leash.
Yeah.
Because like
he's compressing your hand on the leash.
Yeah, he's compressing it on the leash. So I don't know what I'm doing with my other hand. Maybe I'm just like bracing for like dear life. But my hand's in there. Ashley can't see the dog, can't see me. And I just, like, as clearly as possible, I say, let go. Let go.
Yeah.
And to her, she's like, I'm not letting go. Like, like you're struggling with the dog. I'm not going to let this leash go. And now the dog's running through the parking lot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, let go of the leash. Like it took like, 2 or 3 times to say it. And
you're
like,
probably pissed in your brain. Right?
yeah, I'm like, just let go. And so she finally let go. And like when she let go, then the dog was able to back out. He let go of the bite and I was able to hold the leash again. From there, like as soon as he backed out, as soon as he let go, me and him, totally cool. Like it's not like he was redirecting. It's not like he just felt a very uncomfortable pressure that we were trying to put on him. He did not want to go in the kennel. We're trying to lure him, trying to get him in. He felt uncomfortable. He made his bite. He made his point. Not much of a learning experience on his side to like make a correction from it. Like it wasn't warranted. It wasn't capable.
No.
But
that's a good point. Like just to bring up from a training perspective, like I'm always overly fair to dogs at some point. Like I'll break it down like you bit me because of something I did, so I'm not going to hold you at fault for that.
Right,
like
right.
You just did your instinctual thing. I'm going to fix me.
Yeah.
The couple of times that, and we can go into those stories. I have one in particular that it's not is when it's just like an all-out attack.
Right.
And that's 100% different. There's a big difference in
Like these were non-aggressive dogs.
Yeah, there's a big difference between that and even fearful aggressive dogs versus a dog that's forward and like gonna bring it, right? And that's his conscious decision of like, I'm gonna fuck you up. And that those are two different things and handled completely two different ways.
Absolutely.
In my opinion, a dog that's fearful aggressive though, and it's like learn to be successful doing that, is way more dangerous than a dog that's just like confident and like, I'm gonna be a bully. And the reason I say that is because, you have, if I'm going into a fight, like, and I'm not in the right mindset, like I'm just going to do it the least amount to win the fight in that kind of a sense. But if I'm like true life or death scenario, I'm going into that with like 150% because I may not make it out. Right. And that's kind of the mindset that dogs can have. This is just a random rabbit hole I decided to go down, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
But the important part is learning from it, right? Doing those after actions. And another key point, I'm assuming the reason you were trying to get the dog in the kennel is just a safety thing.
Yeah.
With the vans, like having a dog riding around a van like that is not safe for the dog, not safe for you. I've been bit while driving a dog. That's unenjoyable. Kind of scary as shit.
I could not imagine that.
Yeah. I need to have him on, but there's a buddy of mine that like got all out attacked by a dog while he was driving in snowy conditions. It's his story, but it is absolutely hilarious.
That is wild.
I mean, he laughs about it now because everybody lived through it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the last bite, outside of my own dogs, the last severe bite, and it's probably the hardest I've ever been bit. Like, I don't know why. It doesn't make sense to me because the dog was an Australian Shepherd. But man, that little thing could bring it, right?
Well, they're very fast biters. Like it's not a latch and pressure. Like they are very fast attackers just with their breed and genetics, right?
This dude, like he could bring it. So he had already been through training with another company. And he was well trained. Like he was an obedient dog. And I kind of briefly read over the evaluation when he came in for us for another 5-week training program. And it said he gets growly when you touch his collar. And I'm like, that's a weird phrase.
Yeah.
I don't know what that
Growly?
means. Yeah. So, the dog was already trained and like I tested it. He was cool. He was taking food from me. We were playing fetch, like happy dog. And then the next morning I had early appointments. So I got up super early to let out dogs. And it was like probably 3:30, 4 a.m. Before I had to get on the road. So I'm letting the training dogs out. And I decided to not have him on leash because he was very obedient. So I let him out. He does his business. I'm watching him. He comes back in. And so I had like sliding glass door, walk out steps for from the basement to get to the yard. Yeah. And he comes back in and he just turns around and like stares out the sliding glass door. I guess he wanted to go back outside.
Okay.
But I was on a time crunch, not even thinking about it. Like the growly when he touches his collar, I'm like, I just reached down one finger, like put it under his collar and just to like guide him back to his kennel. And holy shit, it was on. Right before I knew it, he like latched onto my left hand, and like I, like an idiot, shook to get my hand out and like created distance from the dog. And then I'm like, okay, maybe that was just a thing. And then like I saw it in his brain. He was like, nope. And then next thing I know, he just launches and he's got like full grip in my gut.
Not even like going back for his collar again. Like
No,
after
like,
you let him
he
down.
looked at me, I looked at him, and he was like, it's on. I was like, all right. So we're dancing. He got like just ripped a chunk out of my stomach, like not out, but like full bite. And I have a lot for a dog to grip there. And if you've never been bit in the gut, man, that shit hurts. Like
I could imagine.
Probably one of the more painful spots that I've been bit. So luckily, like there, I could get his fur, and then I just held him there, and like I was able to like work my way around to at least get the dog's sharp end, like pointing away from me. So I got like I got his back for UFC fans out there, and I got his back and like was able to stand him up, and I'm just like holding him by the scruff, and I like get rear hooks behind the dog's legs. And I just like pin him there. And he's like thrashing back and forth. And I'm like, I'm not letting you go. I'm not choking him or anything, but I'm not letting you go because I know you're coming back.
Yeah.
So then I screamed for Marcy, and I'm like, I need a leash. And she, what? I'm like, leash. And she's, what? I'm like, get me a fucking leash. And she's, oh, okay. And she comes down, and we were able to lasso the dog. And then walk him to the kennel. As soon as I got a leash on, didn't care.
Yeah.
And like zero leash, like he never ever reacted to leash pressure, nothing. It's just when I touched his collar. So after that, like we were cool. And I spent like the next 5 weeks counter conditioning, touching his collar, taking it off, putting it on, food. Like, and he was fine. It was just, we got off on the wrong foot really early in the morning.
Yeah. And like I was gonna say with mine, with that one, it's always your fault, and it's either like I think you said it. You were going too fast. You were in a hurry. It's always patience, or situational awareness, and just understanding what's going on. Because like those are very simple, obvious things, or like, you know,
for me, like with my own personal dogs, who I obviously have way better relationships with, it's absolutely nothing for me to grab them by the collar and like help move them. For that dog, I had him he got dropped off late in the evening. So he'd been in my house. Most of that was asleep. He doesn't know me.
Right.
And that's very personal to him. And I crossed his boundaries, and he certainly made me pay for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's one of those things where, and like that's, as a dog trainer, you learn and you develop, like where things become second nature. Like in the beginning, it's not. Like in the beginning, you know, it's one of those, either your dog does a certain thing or your dog acts a certain way, or you could talk to your dog a certain way, and it just makes sense to do that for another dog. Or even kind of side caveat, it's always hard. Really quick side story into this is when we graduate dogs, or when we finish with dogs, it's always hard going into the next dog when we have that dog for 2 days and we just finished a like refined gentleman of a dog, you know, after a 3-week or 4-week program. And it's hard to like go from like that perfect off leash, perfect obedience to now like
Starting over.
You don't know anything. You don't have any manners. You don't have any like leash handling skills or understanding. And it's definitely like just a patience skill level, like understanding that, you know, it takes that time. It takes, you know, whatever it is. And, you know, being more understanding of why a dog doesn't want to do something or why a dog isn't comfortable, and then counter conditioning those things. Or just, you know, not being an idiot and not making your dog do something that like it clearly doesn't want to do.
Yeah.
I had like a full blown shepherd attack once with, you know, I had all my kennels laid out, and this 100-pound shepherd, like very healthy, just big husky 100-pound shepherd. He's off leash. He comes inside. I tell him, you know, go in his kennel. He like goes up to it, backs away, and I'm like, no, like get in your kennel, crazy. Like, like get in your kennel. You've done this, you know, 100 times. Like,
and this is a mature dog, already been through training.
Oh,
like
been through the board and train with me, and then for the last 3 or 4 years has boarded with me like 20 times.
Yeah. So it's a dog you have a good relationship with, and he's well behaved. And this is an abnormal thing for him.
Yeah, and I actually have him right now out in the van. Actually, he's the face of LLC right now. If you go to their pinned post, that's Jackie Boy.
I'm working on that contract to for picture rights.
Yeah. So anyway, he like wouldn't go in his kennel, and I'm like, no kennel, like get in the kennel, like do it. And he backed up again, and I grabbed his flat collar, and I just like guided him use that, and he backed up a little more, and now like he's feeling the like collar pressure, and I go to move him into it, and just snaps start like the very very fast moving, growling, snapping, biting, and like he was off leash. I'm in a big open room with just a single row of kennels. I like jumped up on top of the kennel and kind of like, I don't know, like in Jaws, like when you're like kicking the shark away from you, like to not like come onto your boat kind of deal. Like that's what it ended up being, where like I'm just using my feet and blocking, and he kept tagging my boots. Eventually he like bit through my old pair of boot, like he bit through the tongue, and then like got into my skin on my ankle.
Nice.
But as soon as I was able to finally stand up, he like stopped, posture went down, did a little circle, walked away. And I think like my phone was off to the side somewhere. I had my Apple Watch on.
Yeah.
I'm like, call Ashley. Hey, go on the cameras, like look at what's going on. Like I might need help. Like I don't have a leash anywhere near me, and this dog is just doing whatever. So eventually she like talked to me, and we kind of calmed down like after action what the situation was. And I really didn't know what had happened yet. Like I didn't know why he was still backing out. But eventually like calmed down. I like creeped off the kennels. Hey, Jackie boy, how's it going?
Yeah.
And he's totally fine, totally happy, coming up to me, getting pets or whatever. And I had got far enough away from the kennel to where I could see into it. And I didn't realize he had spilt half of his food bowl in the back. So he had like kibble kind of scattered around. And I'm like, son of a bitch. Like,
yeah, he's just a clean dog, right?
Yeah, just didn't want to go in dirty kennel. And I literally, the next kennel over to him was open, or like there was no dog in it. So I opened that door. I was like, Jackson, kennel, please. I was like, please, kennel. And he flew right into it. So like it was just so simply,
it was
like,
just the food.
Yeah, it's just that I was an idiot. Once he backed out the very first time, I should have had more situational awareness. Hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
And like it's not a common thing that happens, but I should have been like, okay, why is this dog doing this behavior? And that comes down to like all facets of training,
especially when you have a dog of like his behaviors.
Yeah, it's one of those things like every single thing in training is a question of why is it doing this? Even if you're teaching place and like the dog breaks after 5 minutes, and the distractions and the distance and the duration, you always ask yourself, okay, why did it break?
Yeah.
Oh, it got to a certain threshold. Okay, cool. Let's improve that threshold. So like when the dog did that behavior, I should have said why, know, and I should have assessed, and I should have looked. And
I definitely, and I think you can break down a lot of these like fucked up videos with shit trainers that you see online of like them just taking it way too far, and it's no longer dog training. Like that's just like a egomaniac abusing the shit out of the dog, right? Yeah. I used to believe, and there's that myth that the dog can never win. Right. So like a dog, you have to be alpha over the dog. And even way back in my early training careers before pets, like police dogs, like you had to assert dominance, and the dog could never win. But then as soon as you figure out like, hey, the dog's just doing what it thinks is the right thing to do. Yeah. And it's not like you're making it do that. So if you figure out what am I doing that's making the dog do that? And then you can like whiteboard it and then change it. It works out 100% of the time.
Yeah, I don't like that mentality. The whole like alpha dominant, roll them, bite their ear. Like, there's some crazy stuff out there.
Yeah, we should do a whole episode on that.
Yeah, I think we will.
Like, bite it in the face. I had a lady completely off topic with dogs. Some big beach bum. We go to the beach all the time. And I remember when my brother was young, so he's 7 years younger than me, but at the time, this is like his first or second beach trip. So he's running around with like floaties and shit and like doing things toddlers do at the beach. The tide changed and like jellyfish started coming in, and there was like a big swarm. So we got out of the water. Some lady came by us, and she was like, "Why are you getting out of the water?" I was like, "There's jellyfish." And I'm a teenager at the time. She's like, "Just get stung by it. You got to learn sometime." And I'm like,
I already understand the concept.
Why?
Learn what? Like I've already like
I can see that fucking hurts. I've heard stories and like all the shit in Australia. Like if I can avoid that, why wouldn't I avoid it?
You got to learn sometime. Like Okay, go out in traffic and get hit by a car just so you learn not to jaywalk.
Yeah,
go get hit by a car.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me. But it's just dumb people. And
That's
unfortunately,
wild.
they make it harder on all of us that are out here doing the right thing for the right reasons and trying to do it legitimately. Yeah. I guess we'll wrap it up on that one.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's pretty solid. You know, overall encapsulating it, you know, if your dog is doing an unwanted behavior, if potentially aggressive, potentially, you know, having that kind of an issue, or whether you're an owner or a trainer in this aspect, remember it's your fault. Take the ownership extreme of that.
Not trademarked when you say it backwards.
Yeah, do it backwards. And reassess, reevaluate, and figure out what's going on and how you can do it better. And obviously, if you need help, if you need questions answered, you can find us online. You can find us in person.
Where can they find you online, Greg?
Myself at rsk9nc.greg. That is my dog training account for Ridgeside K9 Eastern Carolina, which is also your account, I guess.
Yeah.
And _ Mike underscore Swarchek.
Yeah. I think the key points, if the dog bites you, it's not personal.
Right.
So don't feel bad that it's just doing what it thinks it does or it needs to do. But then break down why it happened, look at it, and then figure out what it is and change it.
Yeah. I last point, if you haven't seen the movie yet, Stray.
Oh,
or Strays,
my God.
That was such a good movie. I really feel like it, kind of like how Cars is a good kids movie, but like it's funnier as an adult because like there's some better innuendos. Like if you are a car person, you know there's certain innuendos in there that like it's funny. It makes more sense. I feel like Strays is one of those movies where like it's probably super funny for regular dog owners or regular dog enthusiasts, but like when you are a dog trainer or you are that invested into like dog psychology, there's a lot more nitpicking small things in there.
The Great Dane in that movie is by far my favorite, bro. They hit the nuisance of Great Danes and like the personality of Great Danes 100% perfect.
What I want to say though was like out of that movie, the Boston Terrier that became a stray was because
that one was it was narrated by Jamie Foxx.
Yeah, he was sleeping, like great relationship with the kid, all that kind of stuff. And he was sleeping one day and the kid was like running through the house or running through the yard, stepped on its tail. He like woke up, bit the kid in the ankle, and then they, you know, go to take it to euthanize it. Like it's one of those things where like that's so relatable because it wasn't the dog's fault. Like,
100%.
In that moment, you know, like that's not a toxic masculine mentality of like the general public where like if your dog bites you or bites your kid, like it's not, you know, like definitely, again, this is hard when it's like very 1% of it can be a very aggressive dog, a very like dog that would want to do damage. But when 99% of the time it's an accident or you don't understand the situation to what caused the dog to do that kind of thing. Yeah,
I think, and that's something when we're selling these packages or you know, trying to figure out how aggressive is the dog really, we hear a lot more than I would like to hear. Well, my dog shouldn't do that. And like, I want the dog that will just basically, for lack of a better term, like just take a beating and not do something.
I want to hold them by their tail and carry them through the house. They should not bite me for that.
Correct. And especially with children, like how much, like it's unfair to expect a dog to like just get smacked in the face with a toy. Or the very first aggression case that I did, it was a husky. No pun intended, but like it was a husky. But this husky was actually pretty cool. But and it was a pretty severe dog bite on a 4-year-old child. And so I get there to pick up the dog, and I'm like, oh man, like chaotic situation, whatever. So they explained to me the bite story, and the dog was passed out, dead asleep, and this kid like WWE off the top rope jumped on the dog while I was dead asleep. So the dog just got up, redirected, and it happened to be in the child's face, right? Bad situation, terrible setup, should have absolutely never happened, but that's not the dog's fault. That's 100% the parrot's fault. It's not even the kid's fault, right? Yeah. He was 4 years old, and they just do dumb shit. It's the parent's fault. Yeah. So from like a training perspective, I was like, this is easy. Like I just trained the dog. They're like, well, we want the dog to not do that in that situation. And so I looked at the husband and I said, okay, you're dead asleep. and you're dead asleep, you and your wife in the bed, and I come and I just jump on top of you, what are you going to do? He's like, I would shoot you. I'm like, well, you can't do that.
Yeah.
He's like, I get your point. I'm like, all right, problem solved.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we'll wrap it up on that because we can talk about this shit all day.
Yeah.
Cool. See you next time.
See you the next one.